Hey everybody, welcome to day 136 on the CDT. You can see I'm in a hotel room, so I did make it into Helena, and I was able to hike and get into the post office before it closed. So the plan is to hike out tomorrow back onto the trail. Montana. Since leaving Ledor, essentially, we've been hiking in woods. The trail's been a carpet of rocks, 2/3 to 75% of the time. Some of it's been mountain bike trail. Like there's a lot of mileage in Montana. It includes the Idaho border, so I'll say Idaho and Montana. What I mean by mileage is there's two ways to measure travel, right? One is distance, as the crow flies. Like how far from point A to point B did you go in north, south, east, or west? The second is how much mileage did it take you to get that distance? So a very specific example is if you have switchbacks. So the switchbacks go up or down the mountain or whatever ascent and descent that you're hiking. As the crow flies, you may only travel a half mile because from the top of the switchback to the bottom or vice versa, it's not a great distance. Like the crow can fly in a half mile and that's all the switchback is distance. Mileage though, because you're going back and forth, it may take you 3 miles or 2.5 miles to get that half mile distance. And there's a lot of mileage in Montana. It has, like this state has the most mileage of the 5 states. Or I should say, I guess 4 states if I'm including Idaho and Montana together. So when we got into Idaho, we were traveling west and south, and we kept on going on that border. And then once we made the turn, now we're going east and north and coming back. If you look at the 3 other states, so New Mexico, Colorado, and Wyoming, we pretty much hiked across those states. And yes, there was there's curvature in the line, but for the most part, the line is across the states. Idaho, Montana, we're doing this huge swoop and it's a lot of mileage, but it's not a lot of distance. So for example, this morning, I had about 9 miles, just under 9 miles to get to the highway to get a ride into Helena. On a clean trail, meaning without rocks, that's trying to go as directly as possible, that doesn't have a bunch of up and down, just like trying to get to point A to point B as quickly as possible. For example, if I was on an unpaved road, I could have covered those 9 miles in about 3 hours. I wasn't able to do that. So this morning, I was on trail by just a shade after 6:45. I didn't get to the highway until 10:30. It took me almost 4 hours. It was 3 hours and 45 minutes to get to the road. I didn't take any breaks. It's just the road, like the trail, the first 2.5 miles I was on a road and I made good time. But then we got on trail, and again, there's rocks on the trail, so you have to watch where you're stepping, especially me on descent, so I'm not rolling my ankle. The trail was doing S's and like U's and all sorts of stuff when we could have just walked straight. There was up and downs when we could have traversed. It's just, Montana's a rough state. Like the CDT specifically is what I'm talking about. It's been a rough state to hike in since West Yellowstone all the way to Helena so far. So thankfully I was able to get to the highway at 10:30, which gave me a buffer because the post office didn't close till noon. It took me about a half an hour before I was able to get a ride. And then it's like 16 miles, so we drove in. So I was able to get to the post office about 11:30, cutting it close maybe, but I got here, which means I get to hike out tomorrow. So that's the summary of the hiking itself. Something, I don't know if it's magical or I don't know how to describe it, but something happened this morning that I was hoping was going to happen in Yellowstone National Park, but we were just in the wrong part of the park, and the animals had moved up, I think up into the valley, the high valley, or the high area of the park. I got to hear wolves this morning. So I think in yesterday's video I mentioned like a coyote was howling near my tent, like really close to my tent. It was a solo coyote, because in the distance you could hear the rest of them answering. This morning I was hiking and I heard this mournful howl, and it's like you'll hear dogs do it, especially young dogs like puppies. They'll do this mournful kind of, it's almost a cry rather than a howl, because they want their caretaker to come and be with them, and their caretaker might be trying to train them to be in a crate, or be okay with separation, like the family leaving and then coming back. And so the puppy will give like this very mournful cry of like, I'm alone. And that's what it sounded like, but it was many wolves. And so I'm wondering if one of the members of their pack had been in an accident or been killed, because there were several wolves that were giving a very mournful howl or cry this morning. And it was sad and beautiful at the same time, but I got to hear the wolves, and that's one of the things that I wanted to hear on the trail. Like I don't need to see wolves. Like a pack of wolves in a distance, I mean, maybe like if the distance is a good distance, but I don't need to see a pack of wolves. But being able to like hear them, that was one of the things I wanted to hear on the trail, and I got to hear it this morning. So as I'm frustrated, like trying to get to the road in order to get to the post office, suddenly I get to hear wolves, and it was kind of a wonderful moment in the middle of a frustrating situation. I think that's about it for trail stuff. I mean, I gave a pretty long update yesterday, so I'll hike out tomorrow. I gave myself a little bit of buffer. I'm not gonna get on trail at like 7 or 7:30. I arranged a ride, so I'm getting picked up at 9, so I get to sleep in a little bit. I did get into town at 11:30, so once I picked up the stuff in the post office, I went and ate a huge brunch, and then I went through my resupply and went to the grocery store and got some more food, and I've been snacking, and then I just ate a huge dinner, so I've been putting calories in. I'm doing laundry now, that's why I have my rain jacket on, and I'm about to take a shower. So I'll get on trail tomorrow, and I got about 125 miles to Benchmark Ranch, which is where the next box is. It's not a town. So I'll just dive in, get my box, and dive out. So I'm gonna try to hike that 125 miles in 5 days, which is about 25 miles a day, which is a little bit less than what I've been hiking now. And then from Benchmark to East Glacier is 132 days. 132 miles. So it'll be about another 5 days. It'll be 26-ish miles per day. So still middle 20s to try to get the next bit of mileage finished in the next 10 days. And then once I get to East Glacier, I can figure out if I get to go to Waterton or Chief Mountain, or if it's snowed, walk a road. So I got to figure that stuff out. Thanks everyone for watching the videos. A huge shout out to the folks that offer rides to CDT hikers, because we couldn't get in and out of town without you folks. And I hope everyone's doing well, and try to enjoy some of this warm weather before the cold weather comes, because the last 2 days were cold on the trail. Today it warmed up, but just to explain how cold it was last night, the condensation on the inside of my tent turned to frost. And so when I woke up this morning, both the outside and the inside of my tent was frosted, and every single piece of vegetation around my tent, including the ground, was frosted. So it wasn't a freeze, but it got pretty close to a freeze, because everything had a nice white flaky coating of frost. So enjoy the warm weather while we got it. All right, everyone, have a nice evening, and I'll talk to you later.